Okay everyone, today's video I'm going to show you a few works that I started this week, and then I'm going to move into a piece that we're going to work on from start to almost finish. We're not going to quite finish it, but I wanted to show you how I start one again and work to almost completion. Today I'm going to start off with a couple of pictures. These are two that I started this week abstractly, and I wanted to show you how I go back into the images and try to work into the colors and shapes that I've made. Shapes are very important. It can give you openings, can give you ideas. I started both these pieces without any prior knowledge or any idea of what I wanted to do. But as I kept putting down shapes and textures, things started to evolve. Both of these will evolve into some sort of landscape. The image on the right, I started off with a bottom of the circles I make with dishwashing liquid and acrylic, and eventually that kind of brought me into some sort of stream, which I put in the middle of the page. On the left, I started with shapes, and they kind of developed into some kind of, I started to see a shoreline. So as a result of the brown shape on the right, I went over into the other shape and started to bring blue and white in to bring some sort of water. I think the magic in making art is that all of us have different approaches. For example, on the left, I saw a shoreline. You might see a different shape, which will take you in a totally different direction. I often think about that. The one on the right, same thing. Some of you may see different shapes and decide to do something different. But working with the principles of design, shape, color, texture, etc., can get you going on any kind of intuitive piece. And as you've seen in my previous videos, I'm definitely into working intuitively. I do bring in past experiences. I do bring in some references, but if the reference is there, I generally only barely use it and move on to something else after I start. It's kind of like a starter thing for me if I do use a photo reference or a sketchbook reference. I'm always trying to balance the images well in terms of lightnesses and darknesses. On the right, you have the dark blue in the middle of the page. On the right, the cloud shape with the reddish, purplish color kind of balances that. Over here on the left, I'm trying to work on some sort of balance. It was kind of top heavy. Now at the bottom, I'm bringing in some more, which will kind of even out the vertical. And now I'll skip ahead to the finished pieces on each of these. And you can see how I brought a figure into the left along with the boats in the middle of the part of the painting. And I'm just going to scan in here so you can see some of the shapes and techniques and pen. I did a lot of pen work on this. Over on the right, a lot of pastel and Prismacolor also brought into it with pencil. Okay, the next two I'm going to show you are things I've just started. This is just the abstraction. And I did this a couple days ago. I let the ink and gouache, watercolor, and acrylic bleed into each other. And I wanted to bring some houses into this one, so I'm kind of just working from memory. And I'm trying to think back to some of the things I've seen in my travels. I really like tiled roofs, which I saw both in Asia and Europe. And I think this is going to have more of an Asian feel to it, I have a feeling. But just trying to bring in the shapes, and I'm using a water-soluble pastel. Great thing about those is if you don't like something, you can just go back in, put water on it, and you can take it out. But I often use these for that reason. it gives you a way of not having to commit too quickly. But I think I have committed to this one, so I'm going to continue getting darker with the blue. I think all of us develop a style whether we want to or not. It kind of comes naturally. Now, I think some people can work in different styles. I definitely feel I do that. But I think even if you see something that's a little different in style from this one, you're still going to see some marks that I make. And it's kind of like a signature for everyone. The more work you make, the more in that direction you'll go. You'll start to pick up on things that you do, even subconsciously, and they tend to come out in the work. Okay, I'm just activating the water soluble pastel with a paintbrush with water, and this makes it bleed even more. For me, it's all in the bleeds. I also, with bleeding, you can also see a little bit of opacity, transparency at this point in the picture. In terms of color, I'm liking how the green in the middle of the picture is balancing that really intense red at the top. I'm not going to finish this today, but hopefully I will show you later on how this picture turned out in a video later on. Now I'm going to flip over to another piece I started this week, which is pretty fresh. I did this probably 3 days ago, and I started with a very ink gouache watery sky. At the bottom, once again, I used the circles with the dishwashing liquid and acrylic. But now I'm just going to bring in some trees, and I'm bringing in green, complement of red, complement of the brownish oranges as well. I'm always thinking about the formal qualities in painting and in design. I teach my students that, but I'm going to make a repetition here of trees. Repetition is another principle design, which I like to talk to with the students I work with. If you use the principles, it can definitely get you started. Of course, breaking the principles can also bring about some really interesting effects as well. But I think overall, I think you should learn them first. If you don't know the principles of design, you can look them up online. I try to talk about them as much as I can in these videos. But eventually, you do want to break some of the rules. That's the great thing about art is breaking the rules after you've mastered them. But give yourself some time to do that. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of looking. I always encourage my students to look at other artists' work online. And I think that can definitely improve your eye, your critical eye. Once again, with this picture, I'm not going to finish it here with you, but I will try to put it on another video later on to let you see how it turned out. Okay, and this next one's a sketchbook piece I was doing earlier this week. Very abstract, but you can see all the different textures and line work I put into it. I just want to show you, I still work on my sketchbook. When I get stuck or I have a down moment, I'll pick up my sketchbook, go back into images. I may have not visited for maybe 3 or 4 months, maybe even a year, but it's always fun to go back in and take a look and see where you left off at. And it's a great way to get your ideas going without having to commit to any large piece. This is just a small sketchbook I'm working in here right here. And I think I've changed my mind. I think I'm going to go ahead and show you the progress I'm making on these first two pieces I showed you. And you can see the first one I started here a few minutes ago. This is about 4 or 5 days later from when I started. I decided to start detailing the trees and the houses that I started with. And once again, it's got more of an Asian feel to it. So I'm using my nib quill pen, and that is something I always love to use over top of ink and also gouache and watercolor and acrylic. Once again, I think a lot of people look at my paintings. Sometimes they often think they're watercolors, but actually they're not. There's at least four mediums in there, and so I'm just gonna try to solidify some of the lines, bring those houses away from the background with the darker ink. I hope by showing stages of my work, it helps you understand what I'm doing. If you're working on something, hopefully this will give you some ideas and clues as to what you can do. And a lot of it's trial and error. I will be the first one to say that the way I do it maybe isn't the way you should do it. But I like to throw the ideas out there, and you can use them in a lot of different order. But I think a lot of people get hung up on that kind of thing. So feel free to experiment, test it out. If you ruin it, who cares? Try something else. You can only get better. I've taken a lot of pictures I thought were ruined. I've painted into them, painted over them, and a lot of times what's left behind can really be interesting, even more interesting than something if you started new again. I can't say how much I love the FW acrylic inks. They come in a wide variety of colors, and that's what I'm using right here on this painting specifically. But overall, that's the kind I like to use. The colors are brilliant, and I like the different selections they have. Okay, I'll stop here on this one, and I'm going to go back to the other one. Once again, I've decided to go ahead and show you as much of this as I can. This is fairly close to being done, but I'm bringing in some chalk pastel now over top of the green that I used before. I had acrylic to make the initial branches and trunk, but the pastel really makes it jump away from the background, and you're really intensifying the contrast as well. Just smudging here with my fingers. You can use a pencil stump if you want. Sometimes I use both, but on these larger trunks, I'm just going to use my finger. Okay, so I'm going to, like I said, I'm not done with this picture, but I'm probably about 70% there. But just want to show you the stage that I'm at with this picture as well. Okay, back in the studio here. I took you on a bit of a journey with some of the pictures I've been working on this week, but today I'm going to take you into an image that I've probably got about 70% done. We won't finish it completely, but I wanted you to show you the step-by-step procedure and some of the processes I use. Anyway, here we go. Okay, on this new one, I'm going to start off with drawing paper with this one. This is about an 80-pound drawing paper, and it's fairly thick paper, so it can handle the acrylic. So I'm just going into a light acrylic, light yellow, just trying to get the color down to try to fill the page. And I think white pieces of paper are always intimidating to most people. I know especially for my students, larger sheets can almost freak them out. But don't be afraid, just go in, don't have a preconceived notion yet, just color the page. Just go with your brush and bring in the color, and you'll be on your way. I used to think when I was younger this was kind of the boring part of making art, is the beginning, building up to the point where you get to bring in details and things like that. But as I matured and advanced in art, I realized that the initial stages are often the most important. What you set up here will determine your success as you work your way through the image. Right now I'm trying to, as I get the paint on, I'm trying to eliminate some of the streaking, but I don't really mind the streaking because there's going to be other stuff that gets placed over top of this as I work along. So if you want to get a lot of the streaking out, you take a paper towel and kind of place it over top the entire page and just kind of press into it. That'll give you a little bit of texture with acrylic, but it will take the streaking away a little more. Okay, now I'm going to bring some green in here. While the paper's still wet, the yellow is still fairly wet, and the green will just kind of go on over it. It will mix a little bit with the yellow, but that's kind of the effect I'm trying to get as anyway. And here next I'm going to bring in just a little bit of reddish orange. It touches the green. You'll start to get a brown pickup as well. So, letting your colors bleed into one another, mix into one another, always a bonus. And I'm really thinking of, once again, of balancing the picture. I've got the darker color at the top. I'm bringing some at the bottom. So I'm thinking of page composition in terms of balance. Okay, now I'm going to take out the rubbing alcohol again, get a brush, and I'm just going to drop in some droplets, and you'll see it start to work immediately. You can see how that starts to create some kind of texture within the image. If you've seen some of my playlists, I talked about using acrylic. My last video was actually about using a Q-tip with acrylic, if you want to check that out. But this, using rubbing alcohol with acrylic is really fun. You can do so many different things with it. And I'm going to use a toothbrush now. You can get even smaller little droplets than the paintbrush, and you can just flick it around. You can see it start to work. After the brush and the toothbrush, I'm going to bring back my walnut ink, and this is a dark brown color. And once again, you've seen this in previous videos if you've been watching. I'm just going to bring some really quick droplets onto the left-hand side of the piece. And you don't want to get too much, but it's fairly light after you start to smear it. And I'm going to use a plastic bottle again to just kind of swipe it across the page. And here we go. And you can see it's not as dark as the drops are, but it gives you a really nice color. It also blends with the acrylic quite well. Again, you can use any of these things to layer again. In fact, I'm going to layer with the walnut ink once again. And I might even bring some over to the right-hand side. Just load it up and put it on. And I'll bring the bottle back once again and bring some more streaks across the page. Okay, the walnut has mixed with the acrylic, and I'm going to bring the rubbing alcohol back in again and bring in some more droplets. Once again, you can continue doing this process over and over. Sometimes I've done paintings up to 5 or 6 layers of using the acrylic, the ink, and the rubbing alcohol. If you want to bring salt into the mix, that can also create some really great textures, and it interacts with the rubbing alcohol as well. So all of it is a win-win. A little bit of toothbrush work again brings in the smaller droplets. I feel like the stage of this of the painting is really kind of creating a mood. The textures and the colors, the shapes, the squiggles, the smudges, all bring some kind of mood into the painting, at least for me. So now I'm going to go ahead and go into acrylic again. I went back and got my blues, and it's kind of a light blue I'm bringing into this, and I'm going to bring in a tree, and we're going to build this up into another landscape. Once again, I probably work on 5 or 6 landscapes a week. I start all of them kind of in 1 or 2 days, and I'll work on them the rest of the week. I can often finish 3 to 4 paintings a week if I have enough time. But I like to work on multiple paintings, and that way I don't get so hung up on any of them, because I like to have that spontaneity, that sense of adventure, sense of experimenting with the media. Okay, just trying to bring in some smaller branches, trying to vary them, trying to unify them through different sizes, shapes, widths. Trees are chaos, especially when you look at the limbs. So I think one of the biggest problems people get themselves in trouble with doing trees is trying to make it look too uniform. Nature is chaotic, chaos. So I kind of take that into account as I make the backgrounds and as I bring the trees in here. And I think I bring just a little house back here in the background, and I'm going to go with a pale blue, and then I'm just going to take some water and kind of blend that bottom out into the rest of the ground there. And that should do it for now. Now I'm going to switch back to the trees, and I'm going to bring some leaves at the top. And once again, this is a matter of unity variety again, where I'm going to have a unified force of leaves being put down. I'm going to vary them in shapes and sizes. Once again, I'm not delineating, trying to make each leaf completely detailed. This is from a distance, so I'm using a brush that can get me some more abstract shapes, and once again, keeping in mind with the idea of chaos in the leaves. Trees are definitely one of my favorite things to paint and to draw. I think by growing up in an area that I grew up in where trees were prevalent, and then I lived close to a state park, I was very exposed to them through all the seasons, and they still interest me today. The shape of them, and the age of them, and how long they've stood. And here I am bringing in my quill pen, where I have different sizes on these pens, but I'm going to stick with one for the grass. But I want to bring some tall grass in, sticking with the blue. So I'm really kind of keeping this yellow, green, blue pattern going as I proceed through the picture. I first started using these pens when I was at university, and ever since then I've loved to use them. I especially like changing the nibs and getting different sizes, and really experimenting with line in that way. If you've watched my videos, you know I'm kind of an obsessive mark maker, and I'm always looking for ways to make different marks. And I think this line contrasts very nicely with the circles that were created with the rubbing alcohol earlier in the video. So what is your favorite tool to use in making art? If you can, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to have a discussion about some of the things that you guys like to try. If you have any suggestions about something you'd like to see me do, please let me know. I'll take it into consideration. I'm always interested in all my viewers and what they have to say. And now, just to get some variety going, I'm going to switch color from the lighter blue into a darker purple, kind of a purplish red. And I'm going to bring those in and try to, once again, vary the strokes. I've gone to the brush here now, and having the brush along with the pen gives you a few different sizes of line, widths of line. Probably three of my favorite sensations as a kid was to lie in the tall grass and watch the leaves sway in the wind on a summer's day. I also loved walking in cornfields, back when you could walk through a cornfield, wasn't so tightly packed. But those are some of the childhood memories I still remember, even as I paint these images. But I did like going out in the woods and experiencing what summer had to offer. Okay, I'm going to shift back to my water-soluble pastel. This is kind of a viridian color, kind of a dark blue with a green. And I'm just going to go in and kind of solidify some of the lines I've made to have these trees kind of stand away from the background just a little bit more. And the thing about the water-soluble pastels, you can kind of get different widths of line according to how you press down. So I've got some different alternative widths I'm working with here. One of my favorite time periods in art history is definitely the post-impressionists, but also the Fauvists that came after them. Their use of subjective color, that's something that's always fascinated me. Okay, I'm going back into that little house back in the back. I put a window, a little bit of a door, just some different colors back there to kind of make it pop out just a little bit more, not too much. Now I'm going to switch over to chalk pastel, another favorite medium. And the chalk pastel can really get in there and really contrast what I'm trying to do here. If I go around the trees, I think I'm going to get a pretty good effect in terms of making those pop forward just a little bit more visually. Once again, just using my fingers to kind of blend that in and around the trunks. And I'm just going to try to finish that off here. And then we're going to switch over back to the water-soluble pastel here in a second. And I'm going to bring that pastel in. I'm going to zoom in a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. You can see the roughness of the chalk pastel back there. But I'm trying to get, once again, as many different marks as I can. And you can see there's also the remnants of the rubbing alcohol in the back and the brown. Also, the brown contrasts with the blue. Now I'm going to drop in just a figure back in the distance, right in front of the house. And I'm just going to kind of make up a figure. I'm going with maybe a white shirt. And I'm using water-soluble pastel with this. Just going to drop that in. And then I'm going to take a lighter color here just to get the sketch started to bring down the pants. And here we have him a little more drawn out with the darker pants along with the brown hat on top. I'm going to pull out here. This is the picture. It's about 70% done, I'd say. I hope you've had a good time spending time with me today. I've enjoyed having you here. Anyway, if you've liked the channel, please subscribe. Please put any comments at the bottom, and I will see you next time.